Hey, what's up, everyone? It is Ossiana Talks to People. Right now, we're waiting on Lasha Lane. And today oh, there she is. There's my
Hey
girl.
there. Hey.
So yeah, I was just introducing us. Lasha Lane, tell me a little bit about your modeling experience because I know that both of us were kind of veterans of the industry.
So I don't want to say quote unquote veteran because I mean, it makes it seem like I've just been doing it for so long. And I really haven't been. It's been kind of like off and on for maybe 20, close to 30 years since I turned 18. One of the first shoots I ever did was for Bodacious magazine. I was one of their bombshells when they first started, and also Plumpers and Big Women magazine. So a lot of BBW modeling when I first got started when I was 18. And actually, let me check my slide.
Yo, I was just like thinking about it. I was like, maybe I should. Okay, yeah, plunk my thing down.
The
Models
sun
for
is
life.
setting. Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Yeah, so I started out doing a lot of that kind of modeling, and it was weird because it was weird. It was just that my mother wasn't one who was really interested in allowing me to do that, so I didn't start doing it early. I started doing it after I turned 18 and just went the entire adult entertainment route. I didn't even do any regular modeling, but for me, modeling wasn't really my thing. I was more of a video girl, so that's my experience in the industry so far.
So I guess I took like the polar opposite route. Oddly enough, my family was not exactly very pleased about me being a model as well. Pretty much what ended up happening was I was this science prodigy at Monmouth, and I never really even liked science. I wanted to be a model since I was a young kid. I had badgered my mom into being into child beauty pageants when I was younger, much to my mom's chagrin. Um, So this was like a lifelong interest of mine. And when I was 18, one of the first things I did was I started taking photographs. And the first thing that people told me was that I was too fat. Um, because I think that both you and I, like, even though we had like opposite, like, you were definitely in the BBW thing, I was definitely in the pin thin runway model thing. Our body types back in the day, like, they were polar opposites. I was a size 00 at one point slash 13 children's.
Wow. Is
So
that what
yeah,
a 00 is? Is it 13 in children's?
yeah, it depends on the designer, but I was wearing children's clothes well into my early 20s. They had a tendency of looking a little bit short on me, but I often got away with it. In fact, I think that in one of the photos I recently posted on my most recent article, you could actually see um you could actually see the size, the size 13 kids clothing. It was the gray pants actually. um but like, the 2000s was a very weird time to be a model because a lot of us, including myself, we got our start on Model Mayhem. And uh that was a crapshoot, even if you vetted.
Oh, Model Mayhem was crazy. And Model Mayhem still exists, which is
It
even
does.
more wild. It still exists. And, back then it was the wild, wild west for everybody, and it's really interesting because it used to be worse. It's
Oh yeah,
gotten better
better.
as time goes on. I mean, the same shit still exists. The same shit sandwich is still there, but it has gotten better over time, and progressively people have gotten better over time. The model industry isn't as cutthroat. Everyone isn't like fucking Janice Dickinson. And
Oh.
yeah, that bitch. Everybody isn't like that anymore, and we don't have to go along to get along anymore like they used to have to back in the day, which is why a lot of abuse was accepted.
At times I honestly thought that it wasn't just accepted, it was encouraged. with with a lot of the girls. Like I know for a fact that I had a couple of photographers who kind of cornered me, and they're like, so if you want this contract, we're gonna have sex.
Yeah,
And back in the day, I sometimes I think that maybe it was me not being very wise, because I did want to be a model, but I didn't put out for those guys. I lost out on a lot of money, but
I
these
did.
days probably just be like, okay, drop trowel, use a condom, let's get this over with.
I
Um,
did. Honestly, and it's not even I don't regret it. You know, it's something because I knew what I was getting yeah, it sucked and casting couches are fucking horrible and all of that,
Very.
but I knew back then what the fuck I was getting into when I was going to these auditions. I knew there was a possibility that some dude was gonna ask me to blow him and that was going to be the way that I got what I needed to get in that industry. And I was completely and totally fine with it up until, up until I figured out that that wasn't supposed to be what I was supposed to be doing. And they weren't supposed to be doing that to me. But I figured in this industry, that's kind of how they tested you. I don't know. I was fucking, I was 19 at the time. So it was something that even though I knew was a possibility, I was ready for. And that's one of the but looking back on it now, I realize it was a fucked up time and that
It was.
was just what we had to go through. But the fact that we're sitting here now and talking about it and realizing how fucked up it was means that we don't have to go back there again.
Yeah. And it's interesting because like I can tell that there was like a very distinct difference between your experience in the modeling industry versus mine. And ANTM kind of touched on this in the documentary where that was a time when almost all of the top models looked like me right now, except like 20 years younger and 70 pounds thinner. So like they're like, you know, really, really skeletal looking people. And I know this because I was one of them. Like I was like, just for the record, everyone, if you can fit into size 13 kids pants and you're 5'8", 5'9", and Lasha can back me up. I am 5'9". She's seen me in person.
I'm a
Um,
shorty, so everyone's tall to me.
but like if you're like my height and you can fit into children's clothing, it looks really, really freaky in person.
Yeah, and it's
Heavy.
really fucked up is because those things really go back to pedophilia standards
Yeah.
of, what our country is based on, and that's why it still continues to be that way, is because our country is run by pedophiles, and half
Mhm.
of those pedophiles are closeted gay men. And I used to bitch at my mom, right? My mom is a boomer. She's like 75. And she used to always, as I was growing up, I was very progressive about LGBTQIA like movements and things like that. And she used to always say this shit like, yeah, gay men are the ones that are controlling the industry, the fashion industry. They just want to make women look unattractive so that men won't be interested in women anymore. And I used to be like, Mom, that's really a homophobic take. Like, why are you talking about it like that? Not everyone in the fashion industry is gay. Not everyone in the fashion industry is like that. Cut to 25 years later, 30 years later, here we are. And we're finding out that Lex Wessner and all the guys at Victoria's Secret and all these other fools are involved in these child pedophilia rings. And maybe my fucking mother was right all along, and maybe I should have listened to her with a little bit of grain of truth to it
Mhm.
instead of, being where we are now.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because I actually had one of those moments where I talked a little bit about the whole Wes Lexner thing, but going back to ANTM, one of the things that Tyra kept saying is that she made sure that it was a very diverse group of models that didn't quite fit the standard and that those models walked so that others could run. How do you feel about that? Because I think it's honestly true.
I think it's 1000% true. And I think that Tyra did the best that she could with what she had. and she was a scared Black woman who had her first show go live. No one had ever done anything like this before.
Yeah.
And she wasn't protected either. The only person that could have protected her even a little bit was Mr. J. And he and Miss J didn't have any real protection either. You know, everybody on that, she said later on in that interview, no sacred cows.
Yeah.
That was true from the beginning because they could have taken that idea from her and put Janice Dickinson on it, and Janice Dickinson could have run that show into the ground from jump and point from the beginning. But the fact that it was a Black woman doing it on UPN, primetime TV, it took off like crazy, and she realized halfway through that she was going to have to compromise some parts of her life in order to keep this show going. Now, do not get me wrong. She's extremely culpable of being a narcissist and handling things extremely inappropriately, especially with Mr. J, and how she's handling things with J. Alexander, with Miss
Yeah.
J. I don't like that at all. But more than one thing can be true um, with
Yeah.
this documentary. So many things are true. Like, I'm just glad she even showed up to do the
Yeah.
fucking thing.
Honestly, the fact that she showed up and allowed this to air speaks volume about her character, because a lot of people in the fashion industry, if you even say something sideways about them, they'll be like, okay, I'm not airing this. Like, there's this weird culture of silence, and there's also this weird culture of elitism that goes on in fashion, even through today. And it was actually shocking that she allowed this to air, because I think
I'm
that
gonna say,
she,
can I say one more thing?
of course.
Um, even even with it airing right now, I still think there's a level of narcissistic behavior behind what she's doing because it's going to go out there. People are going to be, oh, she took accountability and she's this is her, putting herself out for contrition and public consumption so she can be raked over the coals. And to some extent, it is a humiliation kink and all of that. So again, all of those things can be true. She's seriously talking about a new cycle. So if she's talking about a new cycle, here we go again, putting herself in a position where she's going to have to compromise. And if she's looking to not compromise this time,
I
I
don't
don't know,
know.
but her stuff is still her choices are still sus. So she's
Yeah.
not completely safe.
She's not completely safe, and she's not completely innocent.
Mhm.
There, like, one of the things that I really wish that they would have talked about, like, the models said that once they finished the entire show, they finished the taping, even if they won, they weren't getting the jobs that they were promised, and that they found themselves kind of, to a point, and sometimes entirely, blackballed from the industry because they were on ANTM. And I understand that, because ANTM blew the cover off of a lot of the dirty secrets in the modeling industry, whether they realize it or not. Like,
Yeah, but also it's like the curse of people who win not being as successful as runners up and those who, I mean, look at Chanel Iman.
yeah,
Look at, the what was her name? Lindsay or whatever, the first plus size model that they built
I
a
love her.
division around her at fucking Ford, and without her, we wouldn't have Tess Holiday, we wouldn't have any real plus size BBW influencers like out there doing anything. So, I get it. The curse of being a winner first, on a reality show or whatever. That's like the kiss of death. That was like the kiss of
Mhm.
death back then. Now it's like the kiss of life, but
Yeah.
back then it was the kiss of death. They didn't take reality seriously.
Like, and the thing is that not only did they not take reality seriously, but it's also one of those things where I personally, like, with you, you were like, "Okay, if this guy asks me to blow him, I'm gonna blow him. This is how the industry works." With me, like, I audience, a lot of you guys are not probably involved in the modeling industry as much as we are, but I cannot emphasize how much of a night and day difference it was. My experience versus Lasha's over here. Because the first thing that happened was I actually got scouted by a photographer who worked with Beyonce Knowles. And I had put a couple selfies on one model place and we did a photo shoot. And he was like, listen, I don't usually say this, but I really think that you have modeling potential. I was like, okay, here comes the sales pitch. He goes, let me just take some photos of you for free. You can bring a chaperone if you want, but please consider becoming a model. So I did the photo shoot. It was me, maybe 19 years old in this beautiful purple ball gown, and they came out beautiful. It's not the purple ball gown that you saw with the Vogue Italy spread, but it was a different one. And then he sat me down. He's like, listen, you are a very sensitive woman. You're a very kind woman. So here's what you need to know about the modeling industry. You're short, but if you tighten up your figure a little bit and you get some really good portfolio shots, you can maybe get into a decent modeling agency. And then he's like, don't ever let a photographer touch you inappropriately. Make sure that you have this, this, and this. Get somebody to coach you to do runway. And I was like so tenderly eased into it versus a lot of the other people I know in the industry. I think that's one of the only reasons I actually survived the industry as long as I did. Um, Lasha, you look like there's smoke about to come out of your ears.
The only part that gave me pause is that he immediately went to like the body thing. I remember back then, so it was just like it gave me like the heebies. The rest of I was trying to I was listening to it from the perspective of, oh, this guy's going to be a creep. And it started out like that, but at the
No, but he was
same
actually cool
time,
dude.
that's what I'm saying. It kind of that's why the stank face was kind of there still, but I was like starting to melt into it a little bit because I can understand how having a mentor like that would be amazing. I wish I'd had a mentor when I first started out. You know, I think because you were straight sized also, I never thought that my modeling would be anything other than what it was. I had no allusions to the fact that as a fat woman, there was nothing for me to do except for what I needed to do right then and there. If I had been straight sized, oh my God, you never would have known. My daughter, straight sized, was discovered multiple times, as she grew up. But I intentionally kept her away from that because I didn't
Smart move.
want any yeah, I don't want any kind of interference with her or anyone messing with her as she grew up. But then she told me, she fucking told me. I asked her, I'm like, "Are you cool that I did that?" She said, "Yes and no." I'm like, "Well, why no?" She's like, "I'm a black girl." She's like, "They didn't fuck with us growing up. They only fucked with the white kids." I was like, "Hmm, I mean, yeah."
Yeah,
But then it's still fucked up.
it's still fucked up. And like Lasha, I worked for a couple of modeling agencies on the DL as a booker. When I no longer was that interested in shoots. And, before I really got into the adult industry wholeheartedly the way I am now. By the way, guys, I have my first soft core video shoot pending. Um,
Love
so,
that for you.
right, and then our mutual friend Rex, um, yeah, that's gonna be my first official boy girl shoot most likely. So yeah.
Oh, wait, do you guys talk?
Yeah. Rex was actually like there for me when my ex-husband moved out.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you knew we were talking.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know you knew. That's why I was like,
I was kind of like off in my own little world for a little bit simply because divorce and a lot of things came out that hit me like a sack of bricks. But um back to the situation. It was interesting just seeing um the difference between like how gently they handled me versus how rough they were with you. And I'm not sure if that was I don't wanna say that that was just because, it was adult versus fashion. I
it wasn't rough though.
well, with the casting couch, it kinda was.
It wasn't like that was every shoot. That was like my first experience and maybe like my fourth experience. My photographers, when I was doing bodacious and all that stuff, they were never gross to me. Like, we were cool. Actually, Zeke and I are so cool. He started bodacious again, and
Ooh.
there's still others too, but I honestly, I fucking wasn't a good model. I was not. I was a shit model. And I still am a shit model because I can't really connect with camera because I can't see it. If I can't see it, if I can't see you in your face, I'm looking everywhere. I can't make eye contact with you. So my presence in front of a camera is not as good as it is in front of a video camera where, you're following me around.
I understand that. I'm kind of different because as Lasha, you of all people know, I love being a Barbie. I like playing Barbie, except me being the actual doll. So when people tell me to pose, I'll literally be like, for like as long as they need me to. It's kind of weird. Um, but with me, I actually struggled with a lot of the um real movements and video issues because when you're a model, there's like three different levels of modeling, I think. And not like some people tend to think of these like on the same field or something like that, but I don't. I think that the easiest type of modeling is nude modeling because you don't have to worry about where the clothes land. So if if the shirt you don't have to yeah, like if you're like, okay, I feel like I'm getting a little bit of a little lump and bump here when I'm like laying down, all you have to do is just elongate your body, you know? Then there's clothing modeling for photography. And clothing model for photography is hard because you can't always control how the clothes move. So you either have to have the photographer adjust you, pin you, nip tuck this, or God forbid you end up getting a bad outfit, which I think I think people have seen me in a couple of my bad outfits on shoots before, but when they're bad, they're really bad. And nothing that you can do, no matter how thin you are, no matter how curvy you are, you can't pose in them. You'll end up looking like a real estate agent from 1976 after a really bad Coke bender. And I'm saying this as somebody who's been there. Except I wasn't a real estate agent. I was just a really shitty model in really bad clothing back then. But
I have a question for
yeah.
you.
Hmm.
Okay, so I am under the distinct impression that there are two types of models, right? Like,
Hmm.
and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. They're the models that don't have to do a fucking thing. They can just stand there and like that they don't have to do anything. Like they're just their body and the right outfit. That's just it. The photographer moves around them and they get the shot and that's it. And then there's the other models that already have it in them where they can pose the house down. It's like there's no, okay, maybe there's three types of models. But then there's ones that you have to do everything for them. Like they don't know how to do anything. You have to pose them, style them, and twist them and turn them in order to get the shot that you want, but they still work. Have you ever
So
seen that before?
I have, and I can explain that. But the third type of
Okay.
modeling is the modeling that you do best, which is video. You know how to like sell to the camera. You know how to like maintain eye contact with the camera. You also know how to move and talk and engage so that it actually has that personal touch.
Mhm.
Me, if I'm not careful, I look like Boris Yeltsin on a bad day. And this was actually what kind of killed my runway work. I used to do runway modeling. Um, I sucked at doing left turns. I also sucked at doing right turns. Actually, I kind of sucked at walking in general, but I still occasionally get gigs. But the movement was what tripped me up. And it's very hard to model and look good while moving. Lasha, you're going to have to end up teaching me a couple of tricks with that because Lord knows I could use them.
I
Um,
still don't know what I'm doing. I don't even know how you come to realize it. I get one or two good shots out of the 50 that I take in. You don't want to see my, like, even when I'm trying on clothes, the reason I don't even do clothing hauls or and things like that is because I don't want to show anything from the neck up because my face is always fucked up. I can do the body, but now, especially with like all the loose skin and all of that, these are things that I have to take into consideration. Like, I don't know how to dress my body at the moment. So most of my
It's a learning
pictures are
curve.
not coming up. Hmm?
It's a learning curve, and you're you're talking about like the poses where there's the three types of models, where there's somebody speaking in I think Turkish here, but I don't understand what they're saying. Um, anyway, Joe says she's skinny with tiny boobs. They liked that poses like about to remove clothes. So let me like Lasha's style of modeling where there's like the models that don't have to do anything. Girl, I have some news for you as a modeling instructor. That's a bald-faced lie. What we would do when I was teaching models and when I was working with like photographers with workshops and stuff like that, I would actually like have a couple of like set poses I'd teach everyone because they're universally flattering. So like leaning on one leg, doing this kind of thing, or like when you're on the bed, just going like, and it looks good from a wide range of different angles. And when you first start modeling, those photographers where they have to do everything, that's because they're still learning the trade. Posing in front of a camera is very much a skill and it's very much physical memory. And
Hmm.
to a point, you also kind of have to get very creative because you can only have so many shots of you looking like you're walking down the street or doing the C shape pose or, sitting like this.
Hmm.
After a while, you have to be like, okay, can I put my feet behind my head? Okay. you know, how can
I
I
mean, I
look?
can do that.
Yeah. And how can I lift up my leg to, not look like a one-legged salute from a cat, but make it look artistic? Um,
Make it fashion.
exactly. Um, Joe says, I was lucky I had friends who told me no, get out. I'm not sure, like, this is like one of those things that I talked about in my article. Like, Lasha, I don't know about you, but I love modeling because I feel like it's an art form. It's a form of self-expression for me, you know?
Hmm. If I can get it like the way that in my mind's eye, I see what I want for myself. And that's the reason why I continue to keep pushing and continue to do it is because I know what I want. And eventually I'm going to get there. I have skin removal surgery coming next month. And I'm super excited to see what that journey is gonna look like. And, I have so many different concepts and things like that that I've got just for myself alone. I'm good at I mean, I'm amazing at doing concepts for other people, but I'd like to start doing them. I do that because I just don't do them for myself. Now I can do them for myself. So it's like I'm super excited to keep doing it, but I think that it is an art form and it should be a
Yes,
fucking art form. If it wasn't an art form, then why do we have Vogue magazine? Why do we have high fashion couture magazines and designers who have these sick ass outfits and they want to see them beautifully modeled? And I think that's valid. It's just as
hmm
valid as someone who paints art and someone who, and sculpts. Those things are valid. Those things are what inspires music. Those things are like what inspires generations of change. So
exactly.
if we get meta about it, yeah, modeling is fucking important. And to watch a documentary, it be so true, raw, real, all of the things and just as fucked up to watch as anything else out there.
Exactly. Like it's funny because everyone was talking about like 20 years later, ANTM is super problematic. They don't realize how scandalous it was to have not one but multiple minorities in that team of girls. Like back in the day, like I can't name how many times I've had certain photographers or certain agents yell at me and go, Ossiana, I don't want you to push these black women anymore. No one wants them. Just leave them be. We're not even making any money off of them. Enough.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
and it's kind of shocking because like I can't imagine what Tyra had to do in order to become the first black supermodel. She had to break her back. She had to deal with so much crap from everyone. Like,
And also what she had to deal with that I totally forgot about. Back then, they didn't have a lot of hairstylists and makeup artists and all of that working with Black women or women of color that were coming in the fashion industry. Uh, a lot of models didn't get that until they got to New York Fashion Week and all of that, and they had the top. So Tyra had to deal with what she had too. So a lot of the representation that we had was the bare minimum of what could be done. As time went on, those further seasons, it was on point. But those first couple seasons when it was just still trying to be a thing, yeah, there was no real way for them to have exactly what they needed. They did the best with what they had, and everyone is relatively okay. Oh god, that sounds bad. Everyone's relatively okay.
I mean, here's
Everyone
the
is relatively okay, but everyone has gone on to do some really good things. Yaya DaCosta, she's been in so many medical drama shows. Every time I see her on like a Grey's Anatomy type thing, I'm like, there's Yaya. You remember these girls. You remember all of them later on, especially like I really feel bad for what happened to Shandy, but I watched it then too. And I
I
think that there
mean,
was a big discussion that needs to be had there about like the reality of what that was at the
yeah.
time.
Well, here's the thing, like, one of the things that people don't understand, especially, like, about modeling back in the 2000s, it's gotten so much better now, is that there were times where the casting couch was real. You did have to choose between fucking and getting paid, and not or and I mean fucking and not get or and not getting paid, or not getting that contract. And I honestly believe that if I had actually slept with a movie producer who was trying to date me that time at the time, I probably would be probably living across the street from you in Hollywood right now, or something else. But, like, it was a total skin market, but the thing is that if you actually spoke about it, you got blackballed. Bad. And not only that, but it didn't even matter if it was if you got sexually assaulted, even, like, not while modeling, even not with somebody who was even in the industry and you whined about it, people would blame you. That was the 2000s. And did Shandy deserve better? Absolutely. But the truth is that we lived in a society that while we have issues now, it was 10 times sicker back then. I swear. It broke women. And
It did. It broke us.
it
It
did.
it broke us. And to be, if I didn't have the mindset back then that I was okay with some of the treatment that I was going to get, it it would have broken me. I could, excuse me, I couldn't have imagined going through what she went through on live TV. And another thing that like back in those times, and Anna Fox talked about this, back in the days, like we a lot of us took jobs that degraded us because we needed to be paid. We couldn't
Yeah.
turn down the money. Ghetto Gaggers was out forever, and I was like, I will never shoot with them. That was just one thing of money that I would never take. I was never going
Is
to do that. But
is Ghetto
there
Gagger
are,
still around?
I think, maybe in some other form, and there's probably something still out there for them. Um, but there are women that I respect in this industry that have shot with them, and they've shot with them for their own reasons. And I can't, I learned a long time ago not to judge someone who has taken that role, especially a person of color or especially someone who is, LGBTQIA, because you never know what they're going through and they may need that money in order to get,
Yeah.
that job done. And that's the mindset of what these producers and directors and photographers look for
Yeah.
in us is the scarcity mindset that we have, or that survival mode that we're in, and that allows them to take advantage of us. But hey, they're putting it out on the table. This is who the fuck I am. This is what you're signing up for. If you're down for it, I'll pay you well to get what I need to get out of you. And everybody's on the same page. You know,
And
like
that's if you're lucky.
that it is. That is if you're lucky. That informed consent goes a long way. Yeah, you still feel like shit in the end after all of it. Like you gotta wash yourself more, you gotta,
Drink.
wash your brain out and all of those other things. But some of us were willing to do to get there, and some of it, and those were still mental scars, but we were still, meant
Yeah.
to do it. But for those of us who were okay with it, it's
Like,
hard to look back.
and it's weird because the minute that I would tell people, hey, I'm a model, like, even before, like, I was, like, out about being a fetish model or a nude model or whatever, people automatically assumed I'm stupid, and I think that most people in the chat would agree I'm not exactly an airhead, even though I look like one. Um, but, like, it was weird because you would see so many people trying to pull fast ones on models, and 9 times out of 10, the model was usually the smartest person in the room. "Hey, Miss Hughes, how are ya?" Um, so we've been having, like, you know, watching that documentary retrospectively speaking, I felt those girls' pains because, like, especially with Shandy, like, her boyfriend sat there and was, like, crying at her, saying that she cheated on him, when in reality, she was blackout, like, she was assaulted. She was blackout drunk. She woke up and they were videotaping it all on national TV. And, um oh, Miss Hughes is asking what's the topic tonight. We're basically giving our thoughts about the ANTM, America's Next Top Model documentary, as former models from that era. Um, but yeah, like, I felt really bad for Shandy and she deserved better, but it was a time when it wasn't in the common lexicon. I don't wanna say they didn't know any better because they obviously knew it was wrong, but, like, how do I even explain that? Like, I don't
So
think Gen Z would.
for me, it's a double-edged sword because I have been blackout drunk with another man who's been blackout drunk, and we both
Same.
done the do. And, we put so much onus on our men as well in those
We
situations
do.
where we're both completely fucked up, to be the one who steps in and takes the blame and the brunt for that. And in certain power dynamics, that's not always the case. Oftentimes, well, not oftentimes, there are sometimes men in those situations that are being overtaken by women who are more assertive and aggressive than they are, and especially in a mode where both of you are blackout drunk. Um, and you guys do what you do, and then the next day, one, two, or both of you regret it, and I feel like that is the point where everyone needs to have a conversation about, you know, how
Consent,
do we
how to.
move forward? You
Yeah,
know, because I don't feel like anyone assaulted or raped anyone that night. What I feel has happened is production got way too fucking cool with everybody being blackout drunk and just letting shit go down. They were not drinking. So if you're seeing all of this stuff go down and there's the potential for even a lawsuit if someone gets hurt from being drunk, it's time to separate the boys from the girls, especially since that wasn't part of what was supposed to be happening during that anyway. They wanted some pay-per-view shit. How many men masturbated to that night? How many people were in the room watching them
yeah.
fuck?
There
Like,
was at least
they were
4
in the
people who watched
shower.
stuff.
That shit's floating around somewhere on somebody's hard drive, of that. And what really bothers me is how she was treated. I get her, she and her boyfriend were wrecked, solid. And I understand why they didn't work, but that was for them to go through. You know, that was for them. And they would have been able to go through it had we not all had opinions about her behavior and
Like,
everything. And you notice she never said that she felt like
yeah.
that's what happened to her. She feels that she made a bad choice and now she's had to live with that bad choice for the rest of her life.
And it's been publicly televised. Like, one thing that I don't think that most people
Twice now.
realize. So one for the audience, speaking as somebody who's worked in the entertainment industry, um, I've heard this about a lot of tapings of reality TV. A lot of that reality TV, it doesn't matter if you're fucking, they're still taping. Like, I know for a fact that that happened on Jersey Shore. So there's sex tapes of like Snooki, the situation. They're somewhere out there. We don't know where they are. They're probably like going to be locked away for life because NDA, but you've seen clips of it on MTV.
Big
Um,
Brother. That's why they had Big Brother After Dark.
yeah, like I still remember when they put Ron Jeremy on there. I can't believe I made out with that dude.
Oh, haven't we all?
Yeah, everybody's made out with Ron Jeremy.
Uncle
Um,
Ronnie had his hand in everybody's pants. See what I mean? See what I fucking mean? We're
yeah.
sitting here commiserating about something like that when we
Like, it's funny because like I just kind of realized we're like, oh, did he sexually assault you too? Oh yeah, who hasn't? I'm like, wow, this is such an old school modeling issue. I'm like,
it's like it's, it's like when we go, you knew about that forever ago. Yeah, everybody knew it. We just what were we gonna do? What could we have done back then? What could we have done? Ron Jeremy was the man at that time. Yeah, you fat little
Shane,
black girl, come over here and say Ron Jeremy put his. Yeah, bitch. Okay,
yeah.
I would have been burned out faster than I got this time.
No, like Shane Yurak says, I have not been with Ron Jeremy. That makes one of us, Shane. Um
Good job, Shane. Good job, Shane.
Ms. Yu says, me neither. Okay, so that makes two of us.
Wait, how
Yeah.
old are y'all?
Shane's 25, Ms. Yu's, I don't know.
No
Um,
wonder.
yeah, I'm 38. I met him at a strip club and I was at AVN and I got invited to a VIP comedy hour and by that time he was already very obviously not there. And my friend, and I do love this dude, Dirty Bob, was like, "Oh, you want to meet Ron Jeremy?" And I was like, "Yes, Dirty Bob, more than anything. Oh my God, this is like the coolest thing ever." He's like, "I'm gonna warn you, he's gonna like you too much." I was like, "Oh, don't worry, I love him too. He's gonna be so cool. I want to have an educational and like, thoughtful, conversation with Ron Jeremy. I
Sure.
know he used to be an English teacher. Yes, my naive autistic guy." So I go up to Ron Jeremy and he's like, "I love your boobs." And I'm like, "What's your favorite book?" And he's like, "How about 1,400? Let's get a boy girl video with you for $1,400. We can do it tonight, baby." And I was like, and he was like, "Give me a kiss." Starts making out with me. And then like long story short, he's getting handsier and handsier and handsier. And like Dirty Bob, like everybody was like kind of like laughing, and I was laughing too because I found this to be hilarious in its own fucked up way. And then security came at the strip club, and they're like, "Sir, this is not one of our strippers. You need to leave." Um, so yeah, that was Ron Jeremy.
Jesus. So
Um,
I was at AVN and it was an after party. And for me, when I started watching porn, I was looking at it as a student. You know,
Same.
I started watching at 8. I was studying shit. I learned everything that I needed to know about porn. I mean, about sex from watching porn because no one else was going to tell me. So I looked at it as that. So for me, he was like a professor.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know how he was able to do the shit that he was able to do in my autistic mind, right? So I go up and I'm like, hey, Mr. So-and-so. And he's like, ooh, you're cute for a black girl. Ooh, look at you. And you're big too. And he started holding, I'm like, I just want to ask you questions. How are you able to come on command? And
He
he's just,
he don't d- he does not do no questions. He just sticks his tongue down your throat.
it was a lot to handle. But I was just like, okay, calm down. No, wait a minute. And then he was like,
I was
"Oh, you're
starstruck.
not
I was starstruck. I was like, holy shit, I'm making out with the legend himself. Evan Stone's a lot more down to earth though.
okay. We got to talk about Evan.
Oh, I
Yeah,
love that dude. He's
you're
awesome.
not gonna love him soon.
No.
Yeah,
Why?
right wing.
What?
He's on
No.
our MAGA list.
No.
I needed to talk to you. I hate to even bring it to you this way because I wanted to talk to you about it, but I know you've been so busy. We've both been like super fucking busy. But I'm like, we're gonna have
Dude,
to. I figured you'd find out on your own because I'm not even completely sure about the whole thing. But we have a list of performers that are MAGA affiliated that we just don't fuck with, and so he's on that list along with J. Crew and a couple other dudes.
dude, that's ouch.
I I know, bro. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do it like that. But
Well,
yeah, we'll deep dive on it later.
yeah,
But
we'll deep dive off that later. But like, even though like what we're talking about happened in the adult film industry, the truth is that like this was also just a thing that happened in the fashion industry. While we had Uncle Ronnie, in the fashion industry they had Uncle Terry Richardson, and he was famous for doing the exact same thing as Ron Jeremy. But Terry Richardson was actually a lot more malicious with his stuff. And what I mean by that is that with Ron Jeremy, like he's like oddly complimentary about it. He was funny about it. And also you could tell like, the lights are on but no one's home, so you can kind of like, oh, dirty old man. And he's also like a superstar, so I'm not going to say no. Um
mhm.
especially not since like I was fangirling like when I saw what Ron Jeremy looked like when he was young. Oh my god, dude. Cow. But like, well, dude, what can I say? I currently have like this crazy freaking crush on this farmer dude who looks like a young Ron Jeremy. Okay, I have a type, at least when it comes to white guys. But yeah, anyway. Lasha, you look like your head is about to hit the desk hearing that.
No,
Um,
I'm trying to see. I'm on my phone, so people are texting me, and I have plans later on. So I need to make sure
gotcha.
that and I'm blind, so like I can't
Oh,
see what
yeah.
anyone's saying. And yeah.
So, with Uncle Terry, he was a lot more malicious because if the girls spoke up, or if the girls started to cry on set, or if the girls did not allow him to masturbate on them during a fashion shoot, and we're talking, these girls were not 18 years old. Okay, these girls were fashion models sent by major fashion houses, and they're like, if you don't get good shots with Mr. Richardson here, you are going to be fired. You're never going to be able to work in this town again. And they meant it. Shane asks, why did they call him uncle? And it honestly, I think a lot of it was because he did act like a creepy uncle. But a lot of the girls that he was photographing, like, they were fully clothed. Like, a lot of those girls were like American Apparel girls. And some of those models back in the day, especially like when we're talking like the early 2000s, a lot of the models that were walking down the catwalks of Milan, Paris, New York, they were anywhere from 14 to 23 years old.
And
Or
he took
you
them under. didn't he mentor some of them? He took them under his wing. So even though he had that horrible reputation, he still was a top tier at what
Yeah.
he did. So there are people that would, even as models, that would co-sign for him. And yeah, they would call him uncle and then you would, have an affection towards him and people that have been around him forever that he's mentored. So it was not unusual for someone to be referred to as that, especially if they had that kind of like long standing reputation in that industry. And modeling is one of those fucking industries.
Yeah. And Shane also mentioned that the lines between adult entertainment and fashion modeling blur a lot. Honey, I want to tell you something. They're one and the same. It's just like a different visage. A lot of adult entertainers, they do fashion modeling jobs. I do fashion modeling jobs still. Um Heck, I might end up being a cover girl for, a local magazine here soon. Like, you know, there is a connection, Shane, especially with high fashion. I'm going to tell you what I had somebody from a top modeling agency tell me about specifically the men. She said that the women were generally a lot more protected simply because it was the beginning of Me Too and a lot of the women were getting sick of their shit, but shit still happened. But what they'll do with men is, and I've heard this multiple times, I've even seen this online about Abercrombie and Fitch in particular, with Lev Parnas and stuff like that. They would send men. The male models were the ones who had it worse. The male models and the child models had it the worst of the worst. They would send them over to parties, and they'd be like, "Okay, you're gonna have sex
Especially
with."
because they wouldn't tell.
Yeah,
Who was
they
going to
wouldn't tell.
believe the boys?
Who's gonna believe the boys? Oh, you got raped by a gay man? Oh, and back in the day, if you said that out loud, ooh, that would not have heard. That would have been the end of you. You would never have
Because
been
you
able
could
to live
throw a
that down.
stone and everybody in the room was fucking gay. So
Yeah.
yeah, why are you outing somebody? It was ridiculous back then.
Yeah, Shane says Peter Thiel likes men, and that's actually an interesting point because, um, as a lot of you guys know, I have my ear to the ground on a lot of things. I've heard that Peter Thiel does the same thing with young tech bros that a lot of those top agencies did with male models, where they're pretty much like, if you boink boink, then you get the contract.
Okay, okay. Let's deep dive for just a second on this because this is really starting to irritate me because I'm like, are all of these dudes gay? Like all of them
No,
in some way, shape, or form? Or is it what they do in prison where it's like the top dog has all the little dogs like submit to them in some way, be it sexual or some humiliation kink
it is a
or
submission
something
thing.
like that?
It is a submission thing. And while a lot of the top dogs are in fact gay, as we know from what was it, not Versace, the other dude. You know which one I'm talking about. Maybe it was Versace. Um, the gay fashion designer who was killed by his male escort. Um,
Versace on his front
like
steps.
something like that, yeah.
Yeah, on his front steps.
Um,
I think that was him.
yeah, Wexner. Wexner himself was not actually gay. It was his photographer who came up with the entire aesthetic of Abercrombie and Fitch. And like it sold like hotcakes, which is actually why Abercrombie became as popular as it did. And the Abercrombie catalog pretty much became the play guide on how to sell towards women for, men for a very long time. Um, Pretty much like the sex appeal of the male Abercrombie models that they would have waiting in the front of the store. I actually saw on Threads the other day about somebody who worked at Abercrombie and Fitch, and they said that there was going to be a representative coming for a special catalog photo, but only two of the models that were working in the store were actually picked, and they said that they brought a bunch of men there and a bunch of younger girls. They're like, don't look like average Abercrombie models. Ends up that they're for a different catalog, and then there's the connection between Wexler and Epstein. So that girl
Yeah.
probably had a very close call with the Epstein files.
Hmm. That was something that they always did. I mean, that was one of the reasons why people became like Abercrombie employees, Pacific Sunwear, American Eagle, because they had illusions that they were going to be picked as real, if they got a job working there, that eventually they'd be picked for a campaign because that was the reason why you worked at a store, to become a model and to be picked out. And at first, I thought the business model was genius until I figured out, nowadays I know what Lex Wexner was doing,
Yeah.
funneling children through the system in order for people to have more of a pick, pedophiles to have a pick.
So it's weird because I've seen both sides of this. There's definitely like a pipeline from like fashion model to like sex trafficking. And I say this as a person who was sex trafficked.
Mhm.
Um Actually, that's the most fucked up thing about this. My trafficker actually gave me modeling advice and took Polaroids of me. Um, you know, those were used for things. And like it's weird because I see so many of the parallels between what I'm seeing with Abercrombie and Wexler and what happened with me, even though like my shit was a lot more underground. And like it's fascinating because there's this entire like underbelly that America's Next Top Model scratched the lightest surface of with that one girl's, story. But I don't think that I don't think that they could ever really have scratched the entire thing. I don't think that they could have possibly aired that in the 2000s, 2010s. Not at all.
There's still so many things that haven't been showed that they didn't show on the documentary. There's still some things, about how Takara was treated, while she was
Yeah.
there, and how she had a meltdown that, she was removed from the show. I'm sure they reached out to her and she said, "Fuck y'all." She's like, "No." But she went on to do great things after that. So she may have nothing but love for Tyra. You never know.
Yeah.
That kind of like Stockholm syndrome. But there were a lot of things back then that they did that, we I was looking at it, I'm like, they did that shit, didn't they? They fucking did
Like
that shit.
the race changing photo shoot, I just kind of like looked at that. I was like, "Oh my God, how did I not realize how fucked that was?"
I don't
Like,
even know when I left watching the show. I think I stopped watching it after like cycle 14. And like, I don't know. It just got to be too much. They jumped
yeah.
the shark at some point, and I was just like, okay, I'm over this. Plus,
You're
I was doing my own magazine at the time. I was like, I don't have time for this.
dude,
I'm doing my own shit.
exactly. Like
It's real.
when you start doing your own shit and you start, compiling your own photo shoots, you don't have time for that. I mean, ANTM came up with some beautiful, beautiful concepts. But like, let's just be real here. After a while, it turned into Fear Factor. There was no reason why they had to have cockroaches crawling on a freaking model. They could have used the stupid fake bugs. They look the exact same, and I'm still afraid of them. Um, like there were like when I found out that like they were doing like that murdered model scene, like I've gotten paid for death fetish photo shoots. So like I get paid to look like a sexy dead body. Occasionally. Bill's Playhouse, just in case you're interested in seeing me as a corpse. Um, Look, man, I need to plug my own stuff. Um,
Bro, and my dumbass would have been and my dumbass was probably really into that shoot back in the day because I was goth as
it was
fuck,
fun.
And
No,
so
dude, I
I
liked
saw
it.
that and I'm like, oh my God, they're playing with murder and all that shit. This is so fucking rad. So in my
But
mind, I'm alternative. I love this shit. But now
same.
looking back on it and seeing, what that does to a person or what that could have
Well,
possibly done.
the thing is that I'm okay with doing like my death fetish shoots. I like pretending that I'm dead because it's the world's easiest freaking money. All I have to do is just lay there and not move. I don't even get to do that at work. Um, but with the death fetish shoot that they did, well, I can't even call it fetish there because it was supposed to be a death fashion shoot What they did is they made a girl pretty much reenact the way that her mom died, which was shot to death. I don't think I would not have, I honestly don't think I would have ever been able to handle doing that. I think that I would have just gotten up, walked out, and refused to do anything.
I I I'm of the impression the same way that she was, she had dealt with her shit already.
Yeah,
And if she hadn't dealt with that, I think that they were hoping that she hadn't dealt with it so she could break down
absolutely.
and have like a fucked up kind of thing. And they had already, they were used to that as producers. And that was around the time that The Bachelor and all that stuff was starting too. So they liked that kind of like drama and all of that. And when she didn't have that reaction, I would have been the same way. I'd be like, oh, okay, you want me to do it like this now too? Like that would have been
Yeah,
me. But I get where everyone is coming from. I'm just so, 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 so thankful she was healed in that moment
yeah.
and
Like
realized
I
it.
I just wonder where the hell their lawyers were because speaking from a legal perspective, and they knew that that woman's mom was shot to death. Like I feel like that was a lawsuit waiting to happen. I know that in the documentary they mentioned that there were a couple times where they had to have lawyers on set because of like something that Tyra said that still has not actually come out to air. But I don't even want to know what they had to do in order to have a fleet of lawyers that one time when she had her outburst. Because
I don't want to know, and I don't want that for her.
same,
I think it's very important to keep that to herself because she wasn't even herself that day.
she wasn't.
And had she known, she said that she saw herself in that girl and she knew everything that they had poured into her and she had a moment and they caught that moment on fucking national TV and they memed the fuck out of it. I don't need to know any more than that because I'm sure she said something that was tough love oriented and
It doesn't come
thankfully
out
that
as tough love in that industry.
exactly. Well, no, not it would have if Janice Dickinson had said it, but it would not have coming from Tyra Banks. Because Janice would have been able to says whatever she wanted to, whenever she wanted to. No one gave a fuck because she was Janice Dickinson. But if Tyra had said half the shit that she'd said, she wouldn't have show. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So for her to go full on black woman like meltdown with a girl that you love but who you feel has disappointed you, that's only something that two black women can really relate to on that fucking level. It's like a mother and daughter thing at that point too. And so she talked to that girl as if that was her child.
yeah.
And I don't want to see that because that was private. And the fact that they even mentioned that there was more, fuck Jay for doing that. Fuck Jay for saying, and that other dude too, the one with the
Agreed.
dog, fuck him too for saying that because they could have left that they could have left that where that was.
I
They don't
mean,
get it.
that's another thing that a lot of people don't understand about the modeling industry, especially back then. Nowadays, people are a lot more tactful. They handle things with kid gloves. But I remember when I was working at Danny House, the manager, Tawanda Bell, told me, listen, you should consider going to a cattle call for X and Y agency. You're a little bit short, but you might be able to squeak by. And she said, but if you go, I want you to understand something. You're a lot older than most of the girls going to those go sees and those cattle calls. You might not get picked. But if the guy pulls you aside and goes, why are your teeth yellow? Why are your eyes yellow? Did you even moisturize today? How dare you come in here with frumpled clothes? That means that he likes you. Otherwise, he would have just dismissed you without a second glance.
Hmm.
And like, I've been on the receiving end of that as a model and as a writer. And like, I'll be honest with you, as a model, it actually stings more than as a writer because as a writer, you can be like, okay, I can move this around. When they're literally tearing into your physical being, oftentimes with things that you cannot change without a lot of plastic surgery, it hits on a visceral level and it is cruel. They do not hold back because in the modeling industry, your body is the product. Your posing is the product. Shane, do not hate men because you have to understand modeling is both an art form and an industry. This is business.
We
If you
can do
cannot,
both. I think
we
there's
can do both.
healthy room for both. Yeah, let's do both.
Okay,
Let's do
both.
both.
Yeah, we can do both.
Yeah, let's do
But
both.
when you're dealing with something as cutthroat as modeling, you have these agents who are literally looking at 2 to 3 thousand women for one spot once a month, sometimes more. They don't have time to mince words. They also have enough options that they don't need to be nice about things. And for a lot of people, hearing that kind of mouthing off on a regular basis will permanently fuck you up. Like you have to have like drill sergeant levels of tolerance in order to deal with those top tier agencies.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that now we've kind of found there's so much helpful education and resilience and thick skin that we had to deal with and build in those times because of that. And, you know, just for me being a parent, I don't want that for my kid. I don't want her to have to be like, I'm going to have to swim through the assholes in order to get there because this person has been here for this long and they've been doing this and they don't have time to be a good person. I think that there is a middle ground. And I think the further that we go, the more that we learn, the better. Because at certain point, these dinosaurs are going to have to die out too. Why are we still cultivating an industry where that's okay? There is, like I said, we need a thick fucking skin. You should be able to, a woman should be able to walk into a place and hear the word no and not lose her shit because she didn't get that job. It's
Yeah.
just the nature of the game. She should be able to take like, hey, maybe you should whiten those teeth a little bit. Hey, maybe you should do your hair a little bit this way. She should be able to take that. But tearing her fucking down for being, too short or like something like that is something that we can get past and have an industry where they can tell you the truth. You can take it like a fucking champ and everybody can be somewhat decent to each other. I don't, if we can be like Christian Siriano, we'd be good. I mean, can we be like Christian Siriano for right now?
Um,
Ish.
sure. Shane asks, here's my question. How do you separate the fashion from the exploitation? This seems like it's built to harm women and men, really anyone. What do you think has to happen for the industry to become more about the art and less about the abuse? We're actually seeing that right now, actually. Um, like,
Just accountability for me. If
yeah,
someone gets in trouble for the things that they do, if they're trafficking people, if they're eating people or whatever is going on out there, if that's what's going on, accountability for that is what we need. If that person is powerful, they need to lose some shit. And everybody should be okay with that. Like if you get caught, you get fucked. Period.
exactly. Like, I think that there needs to be a registry, like, where if there is evidence of this, this, and this, if enough people come forward for this, this, and this, you're permanently banned from adult entertainment, fashion, hair, makeup, this, that, and the other. If if you're caught sex trafficking, if people mysteriously drop dead around you, which I'm not going to get into details, but I think you and I have both heard some shit. Um, that's when that needs to be on a registry. That needs to be exploitation. Like there's so many like A-list celebrities that are open secrets of being like horrible people. And I've even had articles where I've warned people and I said I told you so later. Um but the thing is that at the end of the day, if the product is good, if the look is good, and if it's helping sell actual clothing or whatever you're selling or promoting the fantasy, I'm down for it. Like there's no reason why modeling has to be as toxic as it is. And to a point, the fact that social media has made it possible for so many models to actually get the following they need to get booked for those major jobs, that's a huge deal. That's a huge deal. And I think social media actually popped it open.
I also think I miss the olden days of scouts too.
I like being a
Scouts
model scout.
Scouts is like a lost art. Same thing with
It is.
like A&R, artist and repertoire and music. That's kind of like a lost art. Everyone is just going to social media for their stuff, which is great. It's, gets it out there and everything, but I kind of miss some of the that old school technique to it. I kind of wish we were able to really hybrid a lot of our stuff that was old school analog and really hybrid it with digital, like start
So
incorporating a lot more in life.
we're kind of at that point because scouts still exist, and one of the biggest issues that modeling bookers have is that when they book a model from social media, when they're dealing with influencers are notoriously flaky. And I say this as somebody who, because of their because of their divorce, I flaked on a lot of the stuff. There was a large portion of time where I could not even like fully work on the things I had promised to. By the way, East Coast Josh, I do apologize. I'm holding myself accountable. If you still want to work, here. But what I wanted to say is when it comes to when it comes to that kind of thing, the issue with influencers being flaky is still a big issue. That's why modeling agencies still exist. You're not paying just for a pretty model. You can get people who are pretty models anywhere. The problem is getting them to show up consistently, looking the same way, being the same person. That's what you're paying a premium account for. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of those social media influencers and a lot of models, they do not look anything like their photos or their videos because filters. And you know what? So, like it was already an issue on Model Mayhem, and I'd had photographers tell me, "Oh my God, you look like your photos." I was like, "Yeah, am I not supposed to?" And they would tell me that like they would, they'd get a model for a shoot, and then she'd come, and she's like 20 years older or like 40 pounds too heavy or too skinny, or like she'd have face tattoos when her original photos were still with her clear face. Then it's like
I don't even understand why people take those jobs if they don't look like they do. You know what I mean?
desperation.
Like, huh?
Desperation. They're like, okay, well, if I take this job, then maybe I can just bend it so that they have to take me and they don't have to shoot, nor I won't get turned away because they'll feel bad and I can get paid. And that's the rationale behind it.
Oh
In
my God.
reality, what ends up happening is that they quickly get blackballed, but we're not supposed to talk about that.
I don't like it.
I don't like it either. But does anybody else have any questions about the modeling industry or thoughts on ANTM? And what did you think about the documentary? Do you think it was a fair documentary or
Oh, that's a good question. I didn't even think we answered that.
I think it was fairly balanced, but I think that a lot of people who did not live it wouldn't have understood. Um if you weren't in that field, there's no way that you could have possibly understood how people treated each other that way. Um, Shane wants to know, how does getting a job work in the porn industry?
Okay, that is a whole other question and a whole lot of can of worms that we do not have time for tonight.
Yeah, that is.
Google it.
I have an article if you're interested.
Yeah, Google it, Bo. And you got one of the best writers in the world who talks and writes about porn, sir. Thank you for your contributions this evening. I appreciate you very much. I think that it also was fair, as someone who was there at the time and living through it in real time. And, you know, I think that it was definitely a fair characterization of
Yeah.
it. I'm so glad, like I said, that everyone was able to participate in it. All the main characters, like they got everybody. They didn't have to say so and so wasn't here for a comment or like everybody showed up and showed the fuck out. Even Miss J was there looking beautiful as ever. I cannot wait. Oh, Miss J spawned an entire fucking generation of drag queens.
I love
This
her.
show was fucking pivotal for queer culture, and it was never the same after they fired all of them. The gays left.
Yeah.
There was no support. Why would we support? Tyra
They,
wasn't that great on her own.
yeah, and after a while, she kind of like went off the rails a little bit when she was doing like the swishy tushy and the pooty booty or whatever it was. I was just like, oh girl, what are you doing?
He was
And
willing to shuck and jive just like any other host was. Like what the dude from Survivor. Look at the shit that he's done.
Shane, okay, in the, in the chat, Shane
Mhm.
goes, so like, what's the application process? And I was like, between
I mean, if he's cute, he
slide
can
into
go
our
and
DMs,
apply at
bro.
ANTM. If he wants to apply at ANTMLA, they're always looking for male talent. Go ahead and shoot your shot. It's easy.
I
Go through a
mean,
talent agent.
yeah, that or like if you're like me or you do OF modeling or something like that, I use sexyjobs.com and
Mhm.
huh?
I fucking hate sexy jobs now. I put my ad on sexy jobs before they started charging. And
Oh,
I go back like 3 years later and they're charging like $149 for an ad or $39.95 for a fucking ad. I'm like, what is going on? When did you guys blow up?
Shane now says, no, I'm just wondering if y'all got a marketplace. Sexy Jobs works, ATMLA. There's a couple of others, OC Modeling. They tend to do really good as far as like booking agents. I personally, I have somebody who I'm in talks with to be a talent agent. And then he goes, never mind, I'm making it worse. I'm mortified. It's not like that. I'm
It,
engaged.
no,
There you go.
even
It's
even with
right.
it's okay, dude. Calm down. We're just fucking with you. Even with the thing when you even have to think about it in terms of the business. Half of the people who own anything in porn, a modeling agency, a talent agency, like a manager, a production company, all of them are fucking MAGA. All of them. They all support right wing, most all of them support right wing ideologies. So do you want to work for somebody like that? You know, most of the people, the porn producers, especially in the BBW industry, are MAGA. And we're sitting there trying to, mess with our ability to we know they're pieces of shit, but we gotta,
It's
we
it's a
have to
deal with the
fuel
devil.
our business.
It's a deal with the devil, definitely. And the funny thing is that like if you network in porn, you can get into mainstream modeling now. I mean, look at Sasha Grey, look at that one girl from what was it, Euphoria? Like that's actually a thing. So like for me, that's kind of like the route that I'm trying to go to. I'm trying to get a lot more mainstream through porn simply because porn are my people. They've always been there for, you know, they've always been there for me and I've always enjoyed working with them a lot more than like the elites of fashion, though I actually do enjoy my time with the fashion elites as well. They're very nice people. But
Okay.
if you sneeze the wrong way in one of those sets, like, oh dude, you're done. Like it's insane the amount of pressure that they put there.
It's funny too how we continue, even if we leave the industry itself, our niches allow us to break into the mainstream. So if you become really accomplished in your niche, then that gives you crossover appeal in order to do something mainstream. So for me now, I'm starting to tap back into my BDSM roots because as I'm getting smaller, I'm not even considered a BBW anymore, dude. I'm a fucking mid-sized animal right now. And as I get smaller, I'm like, I don't know where I would even categorize myself. So me stepping back into my BDSM roots feels a lot more
Real.
real to me now. And it's another version of the armor that I can equip myself with, and that just rolls into like my business. So it's the whole thing. We still continue to swim in these circles because it still is relevant to the work that we're doing to you today, you for writing and future modeling work, and me with travel and BDSM and all of those things.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like while we're on the topic of sizism, like let's just be real. Most of the girls on ANTM for the first like 8 seasons minimum, they're like a size 0 to what, 2? They made the 4 girl feel like a giant like tank, and I felt so bad about that. But another thing that people don't realize about how toxic the industry used to be compared to how it is now, like there's still like mostly size 0 models, and I'm gonna be real with you, that's that's not really gonna change in runway simply because that's how the clothes fall better, that's how they flow better, and runway is just as much a performance as it is actually trying to show how the clothing fits. But what
Mhm.
most people don't realize is that in the early 2000s, plus size modeling didn't start at 12, started at 6. If you were
Six
a
and eight.
size 6 and 8 was
Yeah.
size, yeah. I was a plus size model as a size 8, and everybody would look at me kind of funny and they're like, "Why are you saying that you're plus size? You're size 8." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's because they use pins and clips to clip the clothes so that it looks like it fits better. Call you a plus size model and expect the people who are actually plus size to look the same as you."
And then it was really funny. There was this even before plus size models really existed, there were still supersized models. Like one of the
Mhm.
ones, rest in peace, Cynthia Michaels. She was one of the first plus size models, and she was on multiple covers. Every cover that there was a plus size magazine out in the 80s and the 90s, that bitch was on it. She was modeling for Ula Popkin and and Lane Bryant back in the day when Lane Bryant was popping and all of that. Like there was a plus size division, but there was for old women.
Yeah.
It was for women who were in their 40s and their 50s, and there's no fucking way that they could get down there, but they were conservative, and they didn't need they could look like a grandmother or something, so they would put them in, though that would be what BBW was regulated to, which was why it wasn't popular back in that time, because it wasn't marketed for younger girls. You didn't want young girls to be fat. You wanted them to
Yeah.
be stick skinny.
Like, it's really weird looking back at how much obsession there was back in the day over being skinny. And, like, with the rise in Ozempic, we're seeing a lot of celebrities drop their plus size tag. But at the same time, even with the Ozempic rise and everything, I don't think that it's anywhere as bad as it used to be. Because, like, nowadays you got Brazilian butt lifts. If somebody told you you had a big butt in 2000, that was not a compliment. Or at
It was
least,
an insult.
yeah,
Girl, you remember Fen Fen? Fen Fen, I mean, Ozempic is the new Fen Fen from back in the day. That was that was another time when people were like, "Oh, let's get on Fen Fen," and then they were like, "Oh, Fen Fen causes heart attacks," and then
or
everyone
Clen,
got off of Fen Fen.
or Clen, or bitter orange. For a while I was a bitter orange junkie. Um,
Mhm.
this surprises absolutely no one because ephedra was my thing. Um, like it was it was crazy seeing like how many weird stunts people were pulling like behind the scenes as a straight size model, because like when I was like really like in the heat of my eating disorder, um, I'd have like maybe 5 mini meals a day, and by mini meals I mean like a quarter a slice of pizza. Um, I considered a very high calorie meal to be a low carb tortilla that had 50 calories and a tablespoon of guacamole. Or I'd have like half an apple. Or and sometimes if I like accidentally binged, I'd just barf it all up. Like that was the norm. And like I remember having other modeling coaches approach me and be like, "Ossiana, just have popcorn with no salt and no seasoning and no butter. You won't feel hungry anymore. And then they'll tell me, drink like 6 glasses of ice water before you do anything. And then I started to notice like a lot of weird changes going on in my body. Like, for example, when it was like 100 degrees, I would still have the heat cranked up to max in my car. Everyone else was sweating, and I was just saying, I was like,
Why not?
it's a vibe, dude. Like, it's a vibe. But anywho, um, the sizeism definitely was noticeable in America's Next Top Model. I didn't realize how glaring it would be to other people, though. Because for
Mhm.
me and for others in the industry, that's just how it was. Like, I passed out on set before from malnourishment. I fainted walking. That was normal. Like, they didn't even get into the whole banana bag thing that we used to do.
Oh, the potassium, magnesium, and all that shit of all the mix. Oh, don't even get me started on that one.
Yep,
Okay,
right in
so
there.
I'm gonna say this one last thing before we wrap up because I gotta get ready
Yeah.
to go. Um, we're sitting here talking about how 25 years later, 30 years later, they're talking about this whole thing. I mean, with ANTM. And then we look back at how our mothers and our aunties were treated back in the modeling days in the 60s and being Playboy bunnies and all of that. And then we listen to them say exactly what we're saying right now. This is just how it was back in the day, you know? So as we're saying it,
Take it
hopefully,
with a historic lens. Take it as a
15
sign that
years
we've
from now.
gotten better.
Yeah, 15 years from now, when our next generations are having conversations about the things that were going on right now, and we were like, that's just how it was back then. Everybody was fucking crazy because of Trump. I need that same energy to I want everyone to have that same energy 15 years from now that they're having for us right now, because I'm having that same energy for my mother and my aunt back in that time, like what can we do? We can just do better and be better as we get further along.
Mm-hmm. Anywho, I think that this was an awesome conversation. I gotta try to figure out how to go to sleep now, 'cause snowstorm. I'll talk to you guys later. Good night.